What an asshole!
Podcasting from Bass Hole Studios in Hollywood, California.
Yo, what time is it?
You're listening to I'm a Bass Hole with Doug Bass. We've all been one.
He's an asshole.
So let's laugh about it. Now, here's your host, Doug Bass.
Hey, I'm Doug Bass, and this is the Bass Hole Show. I'm continuing my interview based off of the comedy fantasy camp that was run out of Hollywood, California. Business owner David Fishoff and Adam Carolla both ran the comedy fantasy camp twice this past year. I have with me today another camper that attended the camp. He is a comedy writer, and he writes movies, romantic comedies, that kind of stuff. And he took the camp, dabbling in stand-up comedy, wanted to see what it was all about. Please welcome Sean Ridgeway to the Bass Hole Show. Sean, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So you took the comedy fantasy camp in October of 2023, is that correct?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, did you receive this as a gift? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, my wife, she knew I was a fan of Adam Carolla. She knew I was wanting to kind of, advance my writing skills in comedy. So she got it for me for Father's Day.
Oh, no, it's a great gift idea for sure. The way they advertised it, it looked like an awesome thing to attend. And I talked to Rico, who was another camper that attended the thing, and he kind of told me that when they, not that you would know this, but he was sold that there was only going to be like 15 people in the class. It was kind of going to be an intimate setting where you get to work with Leno, Carolla, all these people. Were you under that impression at all when you attended the class?
I was. Yeah, and when I showed up and it was somewhere around 80, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, that's got to be a real punch to the gut, I would say. Even though you're receiving it as a gift from someone, you are a writer, a screenwriter, so you know the business, and you know Hollywood. I'm guessing just how some of these scams are played out and that kind of thing. Would you call this a scam? This comedy fantasy camp?
Well, I would call it a disappointment from my perspective. I think that there are plenty of people who enjoyed it because they just wanted to come from Kentucky or wherever and see some celebrities, but that wasn't why I was taking it.
Right.
And it seemed to lead to that it could be for people of all different abilities or levels of in comedy. But it just seemed to play towards those who just wanted to live out meeting some celebrities and hear them talk.
It seems like, and we kind of covered this on the other episode that we did. It kind of seems like it's a mix of different people, all walks of life, that are interested in trying stand-up comedy. That being said, you have your people from Kentucky, Florida that are flying in from all over the country to do this thing, hang out with celebrities, maybe learn a little bit, mess around on the mic, whatnot. So there's those people, and then there's people like you and Rico and other people that are actually trying to try stand-up comedy or, get involved in stand-up comedy, are already established as, yourself as a writer, or doing stand-up a year or two. And they take this thing thinking that they're going to, work with Leno or Carolla or, whoever is there. And they get there and quickly realize it's an 80-person scam job, cash grab that they're doing here. So like for the people like you, that's got to be really disappointing, I would say. And there's no way that they are weeding people out as far as like, all right, these people have been doing it a couple of years. This guy's a writer, and then there's the people from all over the place that have no clue what the fuck they're doing,
Absolutely. When it was like the week before it started, I was, they sold this like photo package, and they said, get pictures of you working with some of your idols. And a week before it started up, I saw Adam Carolla posting dates in San Francisco those days. And I was under the impression we were going to be working with him. And that was nowhere near the case.
I had read that on a Reddit thread where it said like, I think Adam Carolla was supposed to MC the final performance at the Hollywood Improv for the fantasy camp. That didn't happen because he was doing shows right in San Francisco, I saw, or something like that. He showed
Yeah,
up
I mean,
at the last minute, I think, to watch your showcase. Is that correct?
Yeah, he got there and he watched the showcases and everything, which was fine. But I was expecting, and I think most people were under the impression that he was going to be working with us.
Right.
And unfortunately, there was almost no working with anybody the whole time. They chose who they were going to work with because they were filming a documentary.
Yeah, that's what I heard. They had like cameras everywhere documenting the whole experience and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this thing is not cheap. I know you got it as a gift, but it's around anywhere from starting at $3,500 to $5,000, I believe.
Well, it was a gift from my wife, so it's still,
our
money.
It's still coming out of your pocket at the end of the day. Yeah, exactly.
It was very expensive. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Did you get did your wife get you the $5,000 package?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Like that was a big part of it for me. The selling point was like, oh, you get to have a meal with agents and managers.
Right.
And that was an extra $1,000.
Extra $1,000 to have a meal with agents and managers. So on top of the $3,500 for just the camp, your wife paid an extra $1,000 for you to have dinner with agents or managers, so called. How was that experience? Was that worth $1,000?
It wasn't worth $100. It was awful. It was sitting in a room and eating, basically watching them eat and talk to each other. And there was crazy loud music going on. And that was probably the biggest disappointment. I mean, there were quite a few of them, but
how many people signed up for that part, would you say?
I would say out of the 80, let's say there were 80 people in the camp, there were probably 60 people in that room.
60 people signed up for the agent manager dinner.
And I know not all of them paid for it because they paid the family package, where you could have your spouse or your parent go with you, and they just tagged along, so they didn't have to pay for it. But I really thought, because like we said, I write and I have somewhat of a writing career going, but I'm not represented yet, and that was a big selling point for me.
Of course, yeah. Any kind of opportunity is always something you value. Yeah.
And I actually talked to David about that afterwards, and he agreed that it didn't go as planned.
Right.
And they offered this thing that if you paid for the mentor package with a dinner, that there was an open email. So if you had questions, to send it to this mentor email address, and they would forward it. I've done that a few times, and I've heard nothing. So
really? Wow. So you're saying if 50 people took this private agent manager dinner, they're paying $1,000 for that. That's roughly $50,000. Just estimate. In addition to everyone else that's signed up for the other part, which is another $3,500. So this camp, David and Adam or whatever, they're raking in a lot of money for this thing.
It seemed like it. I mean, they were at the Roosevelt, so I'm sure they paid a lot for the venue.
Right.
But
they're getting kickbacks and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just didn't meet what they set the expectation.
And who would like the agents and managers? Like how many industry people are in this private dinner?
I don't know. It might have been 10, but
and they're all just talking to each other the whole time, pretty much.
Talking to each other. There was actually Mike August was at my table, and he was just talking to two people about football, college football, for like 20 minutes.
Mike August is like a former CAA agent, and now he just mainly manages Carolla, I believe. So he's not really. He's not really in it anymore. I would say, I think he has like one client, maybe Carolla, and then he just does these, side cash grab gigs on the side, just for fun or whatever.
Yeah, and he seemed to be a nice guy, as far as I could tell. But I don't know that they were under the impression, or they knew what they were supposed to be doing, or what this was supposed to be.
Yeah,
'cause I didn't get any FaceTime with anybody. It just seemed like an awful lot of money for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So there were supposed to be writing workshops. There were supposed to be all these. I have the syllabus I was able to look at one point. Writing workshops. They had like open mics slotted. And the timing on this stuff was, some of it was ridiculous. It was like 15 minutes for an open mic. For 70, 80 people. It's like, that's ridiculous. It's like how did they decide who got like stage time with like Leno and Carolla? Like, did they just like pick people out of a hat? Like, how did that work?
So they said, Though there was this thing that happened because I was under the impression, or I was told by one of the valets at the Roosevelt to get my parking validated at the end of the day. And then someone just was talking shit about me for having tried to do that. And I happened to ask her about that. That's just what I was told to do. She apologized and said that she would rig the hat polling, the name polling, so that I could do.
Really?
Yeah. Which just to me means
the assistant campers or the counselors or whatever, the teachers.
Yeah. Which to me means the whole thing was rigged.
So that's what I mean. So it's like you have 80 people paying $3,500 at least for this thing, and they're not even getting an opportunity to work on their jokes in front of Leno or Carolla. It's literally a hat pull. It's like, a small percentage of the people are going to get to go up and do that, which is insane to me. You're paying anywhere near that. Like you should have at least a half hour working with Leno on like your set or whatever. Yeah.
And most of it was just interviews with people, and it wasn't even interviews Q&As, about what you should do. Yeah, it was like, let me hear about how you got into it, which you can hear on any podcast, you can hear on any interview they've ever done.
I heard there was a lot of rehashed Adam Carolla podcast stories and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and that's not why, I don't know, maybe that's why some of the people were there, but that's not why I was there. I've heard all that before. And on top of that, because they were filming a documentary and we're in a room that's overly packed, there was nowhere to sit. And when you did sit, you were behind a wall or something. And it was really, by the third day, I was extremely frustrated.
And there's no refunds whatsoever for this camp.
No. But you know what? Honestly, David was, so I think Rico told you that, since I work in film and my wife also works in film, the strike hit us pretty hard.
Right.
And we had started off paying, and then I emailed them and I said, I know there are no refunds, but with the strike and everything, we're having a hard time. And David was really cool, actually. He said,
that's great.
I'll tell you what, don't worry about it. If you can't make it, we'll just refund all your money. And if you can, then, we can deal with what you owe us after that point. So he's really cool about it.
Well, that's
which I thought was...
Well, that's good to hear. That's refreshing to hear, because I know Rico had a different experience with David. And I'm going to be interviewing David probably next month at some point about this whole camp thing. He listened to our first podcast and, was not happy and upset, and saying that there were a lot of lies on that podcast and whatnot. So he wants to come on and tell his side of the story, which I'm happy to have him on and do that. But I want to hear from some other people, and I've heard a lot of negative things. I haven't heard a lot of positive things so far. So I'm glad to hear that, he was cordial with you as far as maybe possibly getting some of your money back or whatnot. Well,
that was before the camp, in case we couldn't afford it. After the camp,
yeah, it's a different
after
story.
The camp was something different. I emailed him and just kind of expressed that I was disappointed in it.
Right.
And he called me up and ripped me a new one for a while.
Right. So I want to get into this because, this camp is what, 4 days, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday was I think that's what it was. Yeah.
So you have this showcase the final day at the Hollywood Improv, and it's, you guys are supposed to be working on your sets leading up to this showcase, which is in the middle of the afternoon, which is the worst time to have a comedy show. And you kind of abandoned anything that you kind of were working on in this camp, if you had the chance to work on something. Like you said, there was no writing workshops, even though there was supposed to be one. So you kind of wrote your set the morning of the show, is that right? And you kind of just roasted the whole camp experience at the showcase, which is genius, I think.
Oh, thanks. I was really, like I said, I was really frustrated, and I woke up and I just wrote something else entirely. Yeah. And I was nervous as hell going up because I didn't know if it was just me. Because throughout the camp, I really kind of hung out with Rico and this one other guy for the most part. Mm-hmm. And I knew Rico and this other guy had a bad experience, but I didn't know if it was just the three of us. So I thought I would get booed or I don't know. But
it went pretty well. I want to play your set here. We'll watch the whole thing just to have it on the video here. So just let's review it here.
Okay. Sean Ridgeway, everyone. Sean Ridgeway. He doesn't have Alzheimer's. coming to the stage.
Who is this guy that's emceeing, by the way?
That's Mike August.
Oh, that was Mike August. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, for those of you who haven't seen me on stage this week, which is all of you, my name is Sean, and it's been a hell of a week, right? It's been a hell of a week. And for me, I got to fulfill a fantasy of watching a select few fulfill a fantasy, which has been really kind of interesting for me. Unfortunately, for a lot of it, I had to experience it from behind a camera or a pillar or a wall. But that's why I'm glad they offer that photo package. So when I'm at home alone, I can really experience some of these fantasy camp classics, you know? Like that time the kid got up and talked about how difficult it is in high school these days. Or that time the kid got up and talked about how difficult it was because he couldn't get into the comedy club. Or that time that kid got up and talked about school shootings. Now, I'm not a comedian. I'm a writer. And that's really what drew me to camp. I wanted to hone in on my skills as a writer of comedy, which is why that writing workshop was really something to remember. To do next time, David, if you do it again. How many of you paid that extra $1,000 or so to meet up with the industry people? That was really interesting, wasn't it? That was a hell of a night. I got home that night and I got to tell my wife that I got to sit in a room with actual industry people as they talked to each other. And eat a weird fucking salad. While house music was blaring and I couldn't even think. Now, if I could, though, have one criticism, just one. It would be that the breaks between when class ended and the event that night that we had to pay for was just too long. Now, I live in LA, but I haven't been to Hollywood in a long time, so I think I made the most of that time. I got to walk up and down Hollywood Boulevard and cuss to myself about bullshit that I spend money on like a homeless person. But I did meet somebody who's a really cool guy, a homeless man, known as Bassist Joe. You know, he actually had a really similar experience, a life-changing experience like this at one of the rock and roll fantasy camps a few years ago. Now, I don't know if this again.
They cut your mic off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was great. I mean, that's a shame that they cut your mic off at the end. I'm guessing you went over your time. Would you have 3 minutes or something?
Yeah, I think it ended up being 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But
it seemed to go pretty well, that set, I would say.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I got the first laughs. I kind of eased into it. But before that, I was really nervous that, I don't know, I was going to piss some people off. But
well,
I figured, fuck it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure David ripped you a new asshole for doing that.
No, it wasn't necessarily for doing that. It was because I had a bad experience and he didn't like that. And he said he had 90% of people saying that was a great experience.
I doubt that.
Well, I can tell by when I finished that set, the amount of people that came up to me and told me that they agreed.
Yeah.
Not just people who had participated in the camp, but people who worked on the camp. I was given cards. Had people taking pictures.
That's great.
With me.
Great.
It was.
I wasn't at this first one, but I was at the second one they did in February, I think it was, or whatever.
Oh, really?
And I watched some of the showcase in the main room there, and I only saw like maybe 20 minutes of it or whatever. And like the one part I saw was a guy standing up there for about 3 minutes and forgot what he was going to say and just froze for about a minute and 30 seconds. It didn't say anything. And then you had people like Caroline Ray yelling out like, do you want your notes? Do you want, and it's like clearly like these people didn't learn anything, I feel like. Or like that poor guy should have taken a public speaking class at the local community college or something like that rather than spend $5,000 to come do this thing. You know what I mean? Like it's a little like, yeah, it's crazy. It annoys me as a comedian that, this is they're ripping people off like this, especially Carolla and David, and it's like, I think the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp is a great idea. That's obviously been successful. That's been going on over 20 years, and that makes sense to me because music and rocking out with someone is a different thing than comedy. I think it's an individual experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're not those people in the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp get to play with them and. They take part in something. They're not sitting there in the audience.
Right.
And I know this was their first attempt, which is something I talked to David about, actually. I said, well, this was your first effort. I know that there will be improvements. And I'm sure there were. And there were people who went a second time.
That was interesting to me. It's like people that went a second time. Yeah, I met someone that might come on and I might interview her that went, this was their second time doing it. And, yeah, you could say like either these people just have disposable income or they're doing it to network and meet these people and whatnot. But like you said, like there's no back and forth. Like Carolla's not really emailing and taking an interest in what anyone's doing in this thing. In fact, he's making fun of these people on his podcast show, and then that's something where. Look, I get it. He shows up there. There's crazy people in this thing, obviously, like the guy with the cone, I guess, that takes out a beer and he gives it to Leno or whatever. Like that was one thing that they were making fun of. And yeah, all right, that's a little nuts or whatever. But like at the same time, it's like you're producing this thing. You're taking money from these people, and then you get a bad mouth it, and then you do it again. You do it a second time. So it's like, it's like, come on, it's like do one thing or the other. I would say.
I listened to the podcast right after that, and he said I just went to the open mic, and I saw 80 people perform, and I've never felt funnier, which felt like such a slight, And then he was the biggest complaint between him or that he had was that people kept going over their time, but we had no practice. We didn't work on the set, and we weren't even shown where for a lot of us, it's our first time doing this, so we weren't shown like where to look for the light.
Yeah,
no clue.
It seemed very unorganized and out of control. And even if it's like the fact that Carolla booked shows that weekend of the first camp, I would say, look, like if you're producing this with David or whatever, I don't care. I don't care if you're there. You're just there hanging out. Like your face is seen. You know what I mean? Like just be there for the 3 days. You know what I mean? Be there for the 3 days. Your name is on it. Like these people paid a lot of money to be here. I'm not saying you have to like teach everyone the thing, but just show up. Just be there. Don't show up for like an hour. And then and then Carolla was at the final showcase, so he saw your set live. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
And I'm wondering what he thought of it. I mean, did you see him laughing at all or anything?
I didn't look over at him, but I paid for that camera photo package.
Oh,
so
yeah, right.
I saw some pictures of him smiling.
That was another $500, right? The photo package,
yeah,
which I heard everyone got access to the photos anyway at the end of the day or something like that.
Yeah, what a well spent $500.
Right, exactly. And then Mike August emceed the thing. Is that what
it was basically happened? Mike August. And
why
would
you have Mike August MC it, who's not a comedian? He's an agent. Like at least get an agent, or at least get a comedian up there to do it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Which makes no sense.
And so part of the thing was we get notes, after our set
feedback.
But we get feedback from Adam. It was supposed to be from Adam Carolla and what's his
Caroline
name? Who was
Ray
also
or
there.
like
No, she wasn't there.
okay.
Um,
One of the other comedians. That
yeah.
Alonzo Bowden.
Oh yeah, Alonzo Bowden. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So we're supposed to get feedback from them, and like weeks went by after having done it, and nothing. So I emailed them and I said, like, what's going on with the notes? When are we going to get them? And they said they decided they weren't going to give them out unless you asked for it, because the notes were almost entirely negative, unfortunately. So they ended up giving me mine, and mine were fine. Mine were positive, but it was so minimal. It was like,
what was it? What was like an example? Like, I mean, I know you're roasting the whole camp, so their notes might be kind of weird or whatever. But you know, like, did they give you like delivery notes or like, you know, Joe punchlines or anything like that?
No, they said good stage it was like good stage presence, but inside jokes. Maybe tell some jokes that are not inside jokes.
Right.
And but there's like overall good job. That was basically it, which was
I mean, that's
I don't know if that's worth $5,000.
No, but that your set was specifically for that afternoon and that audience.
Yeah.
So it's like you would never do that anywhere else, obviously. You know, so it's like, and it worked for that time with the, you know, the situation or whatever. So their notes are like generic kind of things, and if they're all negative, then that says a lot about like what they provided for everyone for this fantasy camp, I would say, you know, which was nothing at all, really.
It just wasn't what we were hoping for.
Yeah, it's false advertising what it comes down to, and I think that's the major thing here. I think it's false advertising, and especially when they're telling people there's going to be 15 people in the class and people sign up, and then there's 80 when they get there. It's just it's a con game. It's a shame, because like this kind of thing could be a good class or good camp kind of experience if they, you know, if there was 15, 20 people in it, and like, you know what, you had, you know, you had 45 minutes with Jay Leno in an afternoon, and everyone kind of went over their 3-minute set with him or whatever, you know, like, yeah, that would be worth it. That'd be cool, you know, and Carolla's there for the 3 days or some shit. Like, really taking an interest in people, you know, and you know, and I'm not saying everyone should be doing stand-up comedy, but like, they literally let anyone who wanted to do stand-up comedy come to this thing, and there's no prerequisite, there's no screening, there's nothing, you know, so there's no audition. So if they treated it like, you know what, like, send us a tape of like you doing stand-up, you know, in like your local club or an open mic or something, or like, you know, jokes you've written in a script or whatever, you know, I don't know, like there's no care. It's a cash grab, and that's what David, I feel like, doesn't agree with me on. And like, you know, and I'm interested to interview him, and I do want to hear his side of the story, because I'm totally open to hearing that. But you know, that's what it seems like. Yeah, I don't know if they'll do it again. I don't know if they'll do it a third time, but we'll see.
They probably will. He's not my biggest fan, David, at this point.
I already know that they're not happy with me reporting the podcast, you know, getting testimonials from the campers and stuff like that. So I know that. I know he's not having with that. That's why he wants to come on. So he's welcome to come on and share his side of things. He says that he has some campers that have an amazing experience that he wants to tell them.
I'm sure he does.
You know, and I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he does.
We will debate it and interview him and ask the hard questions that we want to ask and all that stuff. So
he did. Ultimately, he offered me. He said, "I will invite you back to the next camp," which was, you know, already took place and you can partake in the writers' workshop, because, you know, there really wasn't one.
Right.
And I mean, he didn't end up inviting me back.
He did. Would you have
no.
gone?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I might have, out of curiosity, to see how they improved it, because I'm assuming they would.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's making an effort to those that are disappointed, or, you know, he's not giving any refunds. I'll tell you that. Like, you know, he is a hard business guy when it comes down to it. You know, I don't know him at all, but I saw him in action, and that's my assumption of him right now. So I don't think he's giving money back to anyone. But you know, he will do the you know, the delicate calls and say, yeah, come back, come hang out, do all that shit. You know.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be paying that again. If he invited me back for free for the week, I might go. But
right. Just out of
I'm
curiosity.
assuming, yeah, exactly. I'm assuming they get better. I mean, they're gonna have to get better if they're gonna continue it.
They're gonna have to, yeah, because there's already a lot of negative things out there about it, and yeah. I mean, I hope it does improve because it could be a cool thing if they really took it seriously and kind of made different levels or something like that. There's the level of the people that are coming from all over the country that just want a vacation away from their wife or their husband or whatever, and want to do comedy camp for 3 days. Then there's the people that live here that actually do want to take it seriously and try it out, and they're not fucking around. You know what I mean?
What really pissed me off was they got this article written in LA Weekly or something that said how great the camp was.
Yes.
But the title of the article was something like "Comedy Greats Work with Up and Coming Comedians." Mm-hmm. So, work with is pretty strong.
Yeah. No, the whole there was a Hollywood Reporter article. It's very it's stretching it, and it's like. And that's the thing. That's the thing that kind of annoys me is like they had Hollywood Reporter. They had articles written about it. They had news coverage on like KTLA or the local LA news or whatever. Interviewing Carolla and David and all about this like selling it. Like before it even happened. So they're like promoting it and plugging it and like reviewing it before it kind of even happened almost on these local news stations. And there's no negative press about it at all. And like anything should be reviewed and critiqued. Like a movie comes out, there's film critics that review it. You know what I mean? So it's like, and like I'm a comedian, I'm a podcaster. I didn't take the camp. I saw a little bit what it was like, but like that's why I'm interviewing you and like Rico and some other people and stuff like that because there should be a critique of it. There should be a review of it, and there's a lot of negative reviews. I know the Reddit thread was like off the hook with negative things about it.
Yeah.
So
I didn't see it. Was it people who went to the camp?
I think there was a bunch of people on there that went to the camp that were doing Reddit threads and stuff like that, bashing it and whatnot. So, there should be two sides to it. So like if someone does look it up and is curious in it, they will find, this podcast or the review of it that might have a different side of it or whatever, or interviews with people like you that are telling their true honest experience with it. So that's kind of what I'm interested in, that just because as a comedian I hate seeing people ripped off and like just abused in this town, and it comes with Hollywood. I get it. There's a sucker born every minute that comes off the bus and has the dream of making it here, and it's all part of it. I mean, classes can be good for comedy, for anything, but you got to know what you're getting into, especially when you're paying north of $5,000 plus travel and lodging and drinks and I mean, there's people that spent probably close to $10,000. Like, it doesn't include that much stuff. It includes a couple meals, but that's about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, included a couple meals at Hard Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it didn't even include the shows. The shows were, except for the first night, which was just in like the basement of the Roosevelt.
Oh, so like the improv show, you had to buy your own tickets.
You had to buy drinks. It was, to the 2-drink minimum and stuff. So we had to sit in the back. So I didn't even go to the next night, the third night. It was just I didn't feel like spending the money.
Yeah, it's like for $5,000, it should include a dinner at Musso and Frank's and a show, and like they should take you around to some of the real open mics in LA. Maybe that like you want to be a comic and come out here to LA. All right, like let me take you to this hole in the wall open mic where there's 4 people listening to you maybe. And no one laughs, you know what I mean? But you get up there and you work on your stuff, you know what I mean? That's part of the true experience, I would say. So like, why isn't that why isn't that one night? You know what I mean? Like, because they don't want to crush everyone's dreams, Like it's literally, it should be, and even the comedians that are teaching this stuff, the second round, I'm just like, man, they're getting paid, whatever. And I get it. It's a paid check. It's a job or whatever. But like, it needs to change if they're going to keep doing it. If they're going to do it a third time, a lot needs to change with it, I think.
Yeah. On the first day, Caroline Ray was there and she did this whole thing where people would get up and she'd work with them on it. And it was only for a couple hours. But that was if the whole camp was that, it would have been great.
Right.
It was like she sat with them. They worked on the materials.
It seems like she cared, like, from what I saw her running around with the improv, kind of like coaching people off stage and that kind of thing. So, that is good. Like that energy is good to have there and something like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing you would not recommend it to future aspiring comics.
Yeah, no. If you've done it at all, or just go and do open mics.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's lots of other classes that you can take that are actually pretty good comedy classes or writing classes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would say do your research before you drop $5,000 on something like this. Or listen to David. Maybe he has a different opinion. We're going to interview him and see what he has to say. So
I would love to hear it.
Oh,
yeah.
You will. You'll hear it. It's going to get interesting.
I'm sure.
Right, well, Sean Ridgeway, he's a writer. Do you have anything coming up? Are you going to continue stand-up comedy after this experience?
Oh, I talked to Rico about potentially trying one more time, actual material, but I don't know. It was never really, it was like a bucket list thing maybe, but writing is my main.
Well, that's great.
That's my main goal. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And, stand-up is always there and always will be there if you want to jump back in and try it again,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, Sean. I appreciate it. It's been really fun and interesting discussing this with you and getting to know you a little bit. Sean Ridgeway, everyone. Thanks so much, Sean. All right, that was my interview with Sean Ridgeway, who attended the Comedy Fantasy Camp. And those are his thoughts and opinions on the whole experience. Pretty good interview, pretty interesting. Look forward to my full interview with David Fishoff, the creator of this Comedy Fantasy Camp, in about a week. We will have that here on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. And remember, don't be a basshole, but if you are, blab about it. Ciao.
You've been listening to I'm a Basshole with Doug Bass. Follow us on Instagram at Basshole Show. Think you deserve to be on the show? Email us at contact@bassholeshow.com and visit our website at www.bassholeshow.com and get the latest information. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast fix. And don't miss the full videos on YouTube. Remember, don't be a basshole, but if you are, laugh about it. We'll see you next time.